In this lesson, we're going to be looking at Korean versus English addresses. We're going to be comparing a good and a bad job application. You're going to be correcting that bad application form. And then finally, you're going to be writing your own job application form. Now, you should be putting the information on here that is related to the job advertisement, the job that you are applying for. Okay, let's have a look at the first one. We're looking at Korean versus English addresses. So let's have a quick read of this. Each country has their own unique system for writing an address. Generally speaking, the Korean address is completely opposite to those used in Western countries such as America, Australia, and Britain. So for this activity, you're going to learn how to write your Korean address according to the Australian postal standards. So number one, first, write down your address in Korean following the Korean system. If you're not sure what that is, you can go to the website here, www.juso.go.kr. Okay, so for example, my address is Daegu Gwangyok시 동구 신남북로 69-1번 웰빙 빌리지 202호. Okay, next we want to look at, you need to work out, do you live in a house, a villa, or apartment? Because they're going to be different ways of writing that. So have a look then at the format for writing your address in Australian English. So we can see the format for house. We can see an example of an Australian house address, and we can see an example of a Korean house address written in English. And that's what we want you to be able to do. So, for example, I live in a villa, and so my Korean English address, my Korean address written in English is Wellbeing Village, number 202, 69-1, Sinambukdo, Sinamdong, Donggu, Daegu, South Korea, 41192. Okay, let's move on. So the last step now is to go ahead and rewrite your Korean address in English following the Australian system. If you're not sure what your postcode is, you can go to www.koreapost.go.kr and you should be able to find your postcode there. Another way to find your address is looking on Google Maps. Okay, let's move on. The next step is we are looking at good versus bad job application forms. Okay, so for this activity in class, we were working with a partner, but you're going to do this on your own at home. Basically, you want to compare the bad application form with the good application form. So you want to look at the bad one and identify any errors, and then go ahead and rewrite the information on the bad application form so that it's correct. For example, we can see that the name is incorrect. So instead of Do Hongil, the first name should be Hongil and the family name Do. Alright, once you have gone through and you have changed, made the corrections, here are the answers. Let's talk about these ones. The company name, I'm just going to tell you that he's going to be applying for Samsung. The position, sales, was very generic. So we want to say more specific, the title of the position. In this case, he's applying for a floor sales clerk. The start date was too vague. It needs to be more specific. Yeah, of course, this date is going to be in the future. I'll let you decide what date you put there. Payment, in English countries, particularly in Australia, we tend to pay in 3 different ways. We either have an hourly rate, so that's dollars per hour, a fortnightly pay, which is you get paid a certain amount of money every 2 weeks, and a salary, and that is the total amount of money you can earn per year. Generally, in Australia, we get paid fortnightly, every 2 weeks. Okay, we talked about this section before. We're up to personal details. We already said we need to make sure that you use your first name, Hong Gil, and your family name goes at the end. In this case, my husband is male, so I'm going to circle the male. And we want to put a nice photo there. To be honest, this photo is very casual. You'd probably have a more professional photo here. Nationality. So we had Korea, but in fact, Korea is too general. People who live outside of Korea, when we think about Korea, we think of North or South Korea. So we want to know, where are you from? So be specific and say, you are South Korean. I am from Australia, but I am Australian. And you are South Korean. The date of birth in Australia, we say day, month, and year. So we need to fix this one to the 28th of February 1981. Identification type. This number here is your Korean national ID number. However, in other countries, when you're applying for a job overseas, generally the best identification to use is your passport number. So I would recommend you put your passport number here for identification. We talked about address before. We want to make sure we're using an English address and using the correct format. Next, telephone number. When we are applying for a job that is outside of Korea and overseas, we need to make sure that we give our international phone number. So our international code is +82. Notice that with a mobile, we drop the 0 and it then becomes just 10 and the rest of your number. The email here is fine. There's nothing wrong with that one. Okay, let's look at the next section. So now we are looking at your university details. We can see that KNU is just the acronym. We need to have the full name. So here we would write Kyungbuk National University. Make sure when you're writing the name that you're following whatever name is written on the website. So if I'm in Australia and I want to look up this university, I need to be able to use the correct spelling to be able to find it. The department business, that's fine. The year started and completed, that's fine. The majors, I think this needs to be more specific about the specific major you're doing. So for example, my husband was business administration and management. Alright, next we're up to previous work experience. So in Western countries, we have a really high value on work experience. We actually think that having experience in a field that is similar to the job you're applying for is really, really valuable, almost equal to your qualification. So it's very important in our country, Western countries, to get some work experience related to your job. Okay, now, so CU, what's wrong with this company name? Well, it's too general. It needs to be more specific. So we could say CU Convenience Store. The job position cashier, that's fine. Start date. Well, it's too general. If I'm an employer, I want to know how long have you been working here. So I'd want to see the month and the year. That way I can know, were you working for a full year or only for 3 months? Next, referee name and phone number. In Western countries, in Australia, getting a referee, a reference, is really important. The referee will be the name of your supervisor or boss. And following the English standard, you'll have first name followed by family name. And we also need an international phone number so that if I'm the employer, I will want to call your previous boss and I would want to find out about how well you were as a worker. I'd want to know, did you show up on time? Were you lazy or hardworking? How did you get along with staff and customers? Okay, same thing for KT, more specific, telecommunications. The job position, sales, more specific, customer service operator. Start date, we want the month and year. And again, referee, we want the full name and international phone number. Okay, we are up to now you completing your real application form. So we have a draft 1 practice, so that means you can make errors on this one. And then we've got a draft 2, which is your final draft, which I will grade at 5%. So your first homework writing assessment is to complete a draft 1 and draft 2 application form. And the draft 2 will be graded at 5%. The first thing you're going to do is employer details. So you want to use the information on your printed job advertisement to complete this section. Next, for the personal details and university details, you're going to use your own personal information for that. Please, you can make it real. Finally, for the work experience section, you can either use your own personal information, perhaps you have done some work experience before, or you can just make up the information here. I would recommend that you put work experience that's somewhat related to the job you're applying for. I think I've already told you this. That draft 1, you can make some mistakes. Draft 2, it's your final copy, which I'm going to grade, so be careful to not make any errors on this one. Okay, so let's summarize. In this lesson, you've done the Korean versus English addresses, and you've made correction of errors on your bad application form. Those 2 papers are worth classwork points, and I'm going to collect your classwork points in week 7, the 10th to 14th of October. We also, so far, you should have printed your job advertisement in English, and that's worth 1 point of your midterm assessment. Job skills profile. For this class, you guys haven't done this. In fact, this is the class that you're missing because you're absent all next week for Chuseok. So the good news is I have made a video to help you complete this. And finally, your job application form, that is also 1 point of your midterm assessment. And that's what this video is about. These papers are going to be due at week 8 at your midterm test. So before you go, it's super duper important that you come and see me on Monday or Tuesday next week, because you have to come and get the paperwork to complete these papers. If I don't see you Monday or Tuesday, then you can get those papers from me after Chuseok. But I recommend come and visit me at lunchtime I'll be in my office number 521 between 12 and 1 p.m. So look forward to seeing you then. Have a great Chuseok, and see you all. Bye.